Aloha everybody, this is Gigi from Kauai Community College. In this video, we will be converting from base 10 to base, say, 8. Okay, so this procedure would be converting from 10 to any other bases, but we'll just use base 8 in this video. Alright, so suppose you have a number in base 10. And since we are in base 10, suppose you have the number 7, 8, 9 in base 10. And if it is in base 10, we would say, oh, hey, place value for base 10 will work for this number. So really it is 789, right? What does that mean, 789? That means, as far as place values go, we have ones, tens, right? Because it's base 10. It will take 10 groups of one level to go to the next. So 10 ones, that's the second place value. The third place value would be 10 tens. And 10 tens would be 10 multiplied by 10, and that would be worth 100, right? So a number in that place is worth 100. So the number that we have here, which is 700, and that's why we say 700. 7, 8, 9 in base 10 is 7 of the 100. That means 7 times 100 is 700. And then 8 times 10 is 80. And then 9 in the first place value, which would be 9 times 1 is 9, and that altogether equals 789 in base 10. So that's what that number means, right? Now, the question here is this number right here, 789 in base 10. And if we were to go and convert that into base 8, it would be equal to what number in base 8? And that is the question that we are asking here, right? So 789 in base 10 is going to equal to what in base 8? So if we were to write the same quantity in base 8, we would have to take a look at place value for base 8. So for base 8, place value, the concept would be the same, right? We will have to just start with ones in the first place. And since we are in base 8, it will take 8 groups of 1 to get to the second place value, which would be worth 8. So each one of these, if you visualize the dots, each one of these dots in the second place value would be worth 8 of these other dots in base in the first place, right? So it will take 8 to move up to the second place value. So that's how that works, the concept of place value. If you are in base 8, it will take 8 of the same of one place to go to the next place value, right? With that said, the third place value would be worth 8 groups of 8, and 8 groups of 8 would be worth 64 in the way we speak, which would be worth 64, right, in base 10. Then the next place value would be 8 groups of 64. So what is 8 groups of 64? That means 8 times 64, and that is 512. Okay, now the question is, do I need one more place value when I am converting 789? Well, that means we are asking what is our next place value? Well, our next place value is going to be a really big number because it would be 8 groups of 512. 8 groups of 512 is going to be 8 groups of 512 would be 4,096. And we definitely don't have that many. We only have 789. So we know now that this number 789 will be a 4-digit number in base 8. Okay, now how do we go about finding out what that is? We would say, well, 789. How many 512 do I have? How many 512 in 789? Well, there is only one, right? You can only have one of those. So you can say that you will have one of these. Okay, now one of these will be worth 512. So that would have to leave you with 789 minus 512, which is 277. Well, out of the 277, how many 64 do I have? Okay, so when I ask you that question, what operation will you have to do to find that out? How many 64 are there in 277? Well, you would divide, right? Take 277 divided by 64. That will give you 4.32. Well, what does that mean, 4.32? So here's our thought process here. We would say 277 divided by 64 is equal to 4.32 and so on. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can have 4 copies of 64. 4 groups of 64. Okay? So what am I subtracting out? I am subtracting out 4 groups of 64. So 4 times 64 is 256. Okay, so I have 4 full groups of 64 within 277. And that leaves me with how many left? 277 minus 256, which would be 21 left over. Then with the 21 that is left over, how many groups of 8 do I have? Okay, again, how many groups of 8 are there in 21? Well, there are, if you take 21 and divide it by 8, you'll get 2 point something. That means there are 2 full groups of 8, right? So 2 full groups of 8. So we can say that there are 2 full groups of 8, and 2 full groups of 8 is 16. So I would have to subtract 16 out of here, and that will give me 5 singles. There are 5 singles left. Okay, so then the number 789 in base 10 is 1425 in base 8. And notice how I am not reading it as 1,428 because that's not what it means, right? The 1,000, the 100, the tens are base 10 place value. Whereas in base 8, I have one group of 512 plus 4 groups of 64. That's what that place value chart means. 4 groups of 64 plus 2 groups of 8 plus 5 singles. And that is the same as 7 groups of 100 plus 8 groups of 10 plus 9 groups of 1. Okay, and that is what we mean when we say 789 in base 10 is the same as 1425 in base 8. And that is how we do conversion. We are connecting the two place value charts together and see how they fit in. Okay? And that is it for today.